When I say The Walking Dead, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Is it the recent seasons, the earlier seasons, the logo? Alright, what if I ask you to name a character from The Walking Dead? Probably 95% of you just said Rick Grimes. The other 5% probably said like Daryl or something. Rick Grimes is the protagonist of The Walking Dead. The story of Officer Friendly is the primary story of The Walking Dead, and it still is. We just don't have its end yet. But with the ending of the proper show, even with Rick being absent for over 2.5 seasons, he will forever be the face of the franchise and the best overall character that the show ever gave us. If you've followed my character analysis videos, you might have seen this video in which I briefly go over Rick's journey, but this was also the first ever Walking Dead video that I ever made on this channel, so for a character as big as the man himself, I figured it's time for an update. So in today's video, I'm going to be analyzing Rick Grimes, going over his entire journey from start to finish, or at least to the last time that we've seen him. After that, I'll give some predictions for where I think Rick is and who he's going to be the next time we see him. So let's talk about Rick Grimes. When we begin season 1, Rick has one goal and one goal only: to find his family. He's woken up in a literal nightmare, even thinking that it can't possibly be real, but it is very real, and no matter the odds, Rick isn't gonna give up. Okay, so he almost does, but he doesn't, and fights his way out of the city with a group of strangers. To his fortune, this group of strangers just happens to be the exact same group that his actual family is with. While it's a happy reunion, not everybody is exactly happy to see Rick. His best friend, Shane, isn't all too thrilled to see his former partner. Because Rick is so new in this world, he has a pretty strict moral compass. He tells Merle and the city that they don't kill the living, and they all have one common enemy: the dead. Because Rick has this moral compass, and because of his protective nature for his family, the rest of the group of survivors start looking up to Rick as their leader. They take his advice and agree with his plans on where to go, which lands them at the CDC. While all is seemingly perfect at first, Dr. Jenner has some other plans because humanity itself is already doomed. But Rick convinces Dr. Jenner to let them try their luck out in the world, to which he does, and Rick's grateful, but the doctor also warns them that
the day will come when you won't be.
Out on the road, Rick continues to be the decision maker of the group. A rock in the road sends them all to Hershel's farm so that Carl can heal from a bullet wound. Both Hershel's family and the group would form a bit of an uneasy alliance at first, but they also learned to eventually trust one another. All would be going spectacularly if it weren't for Shane. Shane constantly challenges Rick's leadership and also their time on the farm, forcing Rick to try and appease both sides, Shane and then everybody else. Rick tries to convince Hershel to let the group stay on the farm for a lot of different reasons. At first, it's to let Carl recover from his injury, then Lori becomes pregnant and needs somewhere safe to stay, and Hershel would allow Rick to do this if he follows his rules. Rick respects Hershel and would respect the farm, but Shane doesn't, and he won't, leading to a more stressful relationship between the two groups, one that is ultimately up to Rick to have to deal with. Shane is still Rick's brother at the end of the day, and he just hopes that he isn't too far gone and will eventually see reason. But Shane doesn't calm down. If anything, he only gets more extreme. Rick finds out that Shane was sleeping with Lori the whole time he was away, that Shane wants to be the leader because he doesn't think Rick is cut out to survive in this world and make the tough decisions. As much as Rick hates to admit it, he knows Shane is right. The world has changed and he needs to change with it. So Rick does to protect his family, but these harsh decisions come with harsh consequences. As the farm gets overrun, Rick is done trying to please everybody. He's done being officer friendly and lets everybody know that he's in charge now. If they don't like it, then they can turn and walk the other way.
This isn't a democracy anymore.
After some more time on the road, Rick finds a place that might actually be able to work: the prison. He decides for everybody that it's best to take over the prison and live in it. This comes with its fair share of challenges. 1, they have to clear the walkers, and 2, there's still inmates held up within the prison. But this isn't their prison anymore. This is Rick's home, and anybody who challenges that authority needs to be taken care of. With the prison at least livable, Rick starts making plans to fortify its defenses, but the day goes from bad to worse to even worse, and ultimately leads to the death of Rick's wife, Lori. Rick doesn't entirely know how to process this. He has over a dozen people looking to him for answers, and he doesn't have any. He gets sent into a downward spiral of hallucinations, and he can't be there for anyone, not even Carl or his brand new baby girl. Rick's mental state couldn't come at a worse time either, because a new threat has risen with the governor. The governor poses a threat to the rest of the group, and that threat at least slightly stabilizes Rick enough to know that he has to fight back. If not for himself, then for the rest of his new family. Rick faces the governor, but also rises above this enemy and his past demons, saving his family and all those at Woodbury, inviting them back to the prison. With the threat of the governor seemingly gone, life in the apocalypse is pretty great. The responsibility that Rick had has been lifted. Instead, there's a council that makes decisions, and this allows Rick his time to heal from grief. This, and he also gets taken under Hershel's wing, Hershel telling him that the world is more than just fighting the enemy, it's surviving. This rings true for a time, until a sickness starts spreading in the prison, and someone else seems to have eliminated the source of the sickness. While everybody looks for answers, Rick is the only one who seems to have any clue what actually happened.
Did you kill Karen and David?
Yes.
While there might be a council, the tough decisions still need to be made by Rick, and he decides that banishing Carol is the best for everybody at the prison. Of course, the person who has the biggest problem with this is Daryl, but there's no time to argue because the threat they thought they eliminated has resurfaced. The governor wants to talk to Rick, even when he tells him that he's not in charge anymore. There's a council, and part of the people from Woodbury are on it. The governor doesn't want to hear it. To the governor, the past is too much to overcome, even when Rick pleads with him, saying that they aren't too far gone, they can still come back. But it's not true. Some people really are too far gone, and the governor attacks the prison, separating everybody in the process and leaving Rick on the verge of death. Thinking that Judith has been killed, Rick sets out on foot with Carl, luckily running into Michonne and looking for any sign of the rest of the group. They find literal road signs of a place called Terminus and start heading that direction, hoping that the others are doing the same thing. They do run into some trouble on the road, but Rick escapes and even grabs a cool jacket from the encounter in the process. This encounter comes back to haunt them when Joe and the Claimers show up. The Claimers even have one of Rick's own, Daryl. Rick is faced with a decision to make: watch his family die or fight back, and Rick chooses to fight back in a moment that would change him forever. In this moment, Rick realizes that it really is us or them. Anybody else alive are probably not good people anymore, they're all threats that need to be eliminated, and Rick will stop at nothing to protect his family. They arrive at Terminus, and if Rick didn't have that mindset after the Claimers, he certainly has it now with the Termites. While he's reunited with his family, it's not a happy reunion, though Rick knows something that the others don't.
They're fucking with the wrong people.
Right out the gate, Rick comes out swinging. He tells Gareth that he's going to use the red machete to kill him when he has literally no grounds to stand on, but he says it anyway, and luckily he gets a chance to make that happen. The compound is attacked by some outside force, and Rick takes full advantage of this opportunity. He kills mercilessly and tells the others to let them turn and suffer. When they escape, Rick wants to go back and kill the others because they don't get to survive this, and the only thing that stops him is the woman who saved their asses, and the fact that she brings him to his daughter, whom he thought to be dead. They leave Terminus, but Terminus doesn't leave them, and the rest of the termites follow them to Father Gabriel's church. After they spring a trap on the termites, Rick follows through on his promise to Gareth and starts chopping him up with the red-handled machete. The group then, once again, gets forced onto the road in probably the roughest conditions they've ever faced. They don't have a home, they have very little food, and they lose members of their family very quickly, but Rick is determined to keep everybody together.
We are the Walking Dead.
But that's when a new face shows up. Rick doesn't trust Aaron, and how could he after everything that they've been through? Even the others think Rick is going a bit too far, but he's done taking chances. He's done giving people the benefit of the doubt, and he doesn't believe that there are any good people left in this world. Readying himself for a trap, he follows Aaron back to Alexandria, prepared to do anything in order to... Wait, what's that? Children laughing and playing inside the gates? Rick goes inside to hear them out, none of them particularly liking having the gates shut behind them, but they have food, water, a whole community, parties, and it all seems too good to be true. There has to be some kind of conspiracy going on behind the scenes, so Rick plays along and takes the role of undercover cop, but he doesn't find anything. This place is for real, but he also knows it won't stay this way for much longer if changes aren't implemented. While Rick knows this place has to change, he also gets a bit distracted along the way, this time with a married woman named Jessie. Jessie is married to a man named Pete, and Rick looks at Pete as everything that is wrong with Alexandria, and also the evil that awaits this place if things don't change. While not exactly the same situation, Rick has essentially become the man he once fought against. Rick has become Shane. He looks at this community and says that they aren't fit to survive unless they change. He's the one going after the married woman now. This time around, Rick is the one causing the wedge to be driven between the two groups. But Rick, just as Shane was back at the time, is ultimately right. Because of his feelings towards Jessie and his want to protect his family, Rick takes matters into his own hands, though it may not be the best way to handle things, so Michonne shuts him up. It's not too long afterwards that Rick is proven to be correct about this place, and about Pete. With no real law and order or any rules about survival, Alexandria would fail, and Rick is put in charge once again.
Rick?
And Rick's leadership couldn't come a moment sooner, because if he hadn't arrived, then a horde of walkers would have torn the place down. Rick formulates a plan to get the horde away, and everything seems to be going smoothly until they don't. The horn draws the horde towards Alexandria, and Rick retreats, though not everybody made it back. Who knows who's still alive, but what matters in that moment is who's there, and that's what's important. But importance quickly shifts when the walls to Alexandria are brought down. As Rick usually does, he adapts his plan and overcomes it, and as it usually happens, someone foils this plan, and it causes the death of Rick's new lover, and possibly his son as well. Rick brings Carl to the infirmary, and once again, doesn't know how to deal with his trauma, so he heads outside to take care of business. Rick's fight ignites a spark of hope among the others, and they all come out to join him and fight for their home. They win this battle, but the true battle, the battle for the new world, is about to begin. Rick promises Carl that he'll create this new world for him if Carl would just wake up and pull through. Carl does, but Rick's promise soon goes to the back of his mind. After overcoming all these different obstacles, Rick's confidence is at an all-time high. It seems that nothing can stop this family, and the time is right for the family to get closer than ever before. But there's also a larger world out there. It's not just Alexandria, and if they ever want to get some kind of resemblance to the way the world used to be, they need to establish friendships and relations with the right kind of people.
What?
The only issue with that is that there's still the wrong kind of people out there, but it's nothing that they haven't handled already. This group always comes out on top, so Rick offers to take down these saviors in favor of building a new world. So for the first time, Rick and the group go on offense. They don't wait for the saviors to attack first, they need the element of surprise in order to take them down, so a plan is established, and they attack the satellite station. Things go more or less pretty smoothly, almost too smooth. This was the group that they needed to take down? Well, it turns out it wasn't. When you cut off one head, 3 more grow back, and Rick learns this the tough way. Members of the group are taken, and Maggie gets sick, needing the doctor at the hilltop. But Rick's confidence isn't shaken. They took down the saviors once, they could take out a few more of them. They could take these guys. Alright, now they're outnumbered. Alright, maybe we definitely should have taken them out beforehand. Cornered and trapped, it's time to face the consequences. This time, there is no way out. There's no way that they can come out on top of this. And the day
will come when you won't be.
finally arrives. Broken and defeated, Rick is terrified of losing any more members of his family. While others want to fight, Rick doesn't know how to anymore. He just lost 2 of his best men and almost had to chop off his own son's arm. There is no fighting Negan, there's only service to him. Rick is no longer the leader he once was. He's scared, and others take this opportunity to try and circumvent him. His own son, the Weenie Hut Jr. Spencer, and even Rosita. But enough is enough. Rick realizes that he needs to get back on track, back to making this new world and forming allies. So he meets with the Kingdom and the Garbage People. Thinking he has the upper hand against Negan, Rick tries to face him, and as usual, things don't go according to plan. Rick makes a promise to Negan for a second time that he's gonna kill him, and the allies he's made start to back him up on that promise. Every single community has had enough, and it's time to take out this final threat in order to fulfill that promise to Carl on a new world. But making a new world is in the back of Rick's mind. At the forefront of his mind, Rick wants revenge against Negan at any cost. He stoops to Negan's level at every possible moment, and his past demons catch up with him again, feeling no remorse for the Saviors and killing them mercilessly. For whatever reason, Rick believes the key to winning this fight against the Saviors lies with the Garbage People, so Rick tries to renegotiate their deal with them again, and it fails. Again. With his little detour, it allowed the Saviors to get the upper hand and deal a major blow to Alexandria. So Rick returns and finds the last thing he ever expected, his son to be bit. The war against the Saviors takes a backseat for the moment, and Rick spends every last second he can with his son until it's time for Carl's passing. But as we've seen time and time again, Rick doesn't know how to deal with his trauma, so the war takes the front seat again. Rick going out and delivering merciless blows to the Savior's forces, even when they're trying to surrender. Even Rick realizes this is too far, so he reads the letter from his son, explaining how he wants the world to be, and how he wishes he could be there to see it all. While Rick sees the point in Carl's letter, he doesn't exactly agree with Carl saying that Negan and Rick can live amongst each other. Some people are too far gone. And besides, Rick already made a promise to Negan, and Rick fulfills his promises. In the final battle against the Saviors, Rick defeats Negan, but it doesn't make anything any better. He still lost his son, and in this moment, Rick realizes that Carl was right about everything. He saves Negan, telling him that they are going to build a new world, and he's going to rot in a cell and watch it all happen. But now it's time to put his money where his mouth is and actually build this new world. With this promise comes its own set of challenges. Rick spared all the Saviors and got all the communities working together, but the past is still very raw for a lot of people. Not everybody agrees with Rick's decision making. For the most part though, Rick is the only presence that all these communities look up to. He's the only one who can install calm and peace and reason into these people's minds, and he's the closest thing that they all have to a literal president. He's more of a figure and a symbol of hope than anything else at this point, and those closest to him have never been further away from his mindset. Daryl and Maggie take matters into their own hands, formulating their own plan to kill Negan so that way they can be at peace themselves. Though as they would find out, just like Rick did, getting even doesn't give you the peace of mind you think it will. At the end of the day, Rick and Daryl are true brothers, and they will always work together to overcome any challenges ahead of them. But this was their last challenge together. Rick gets injured on his way back to the campsite and has to lead an army of walkers away from the communities before it destroys them all while trying to find his family. It's only when help arrives to try and take down the horde that Rick realizes he's been with his family the whole time.
I found him.
Rick sacrifices himself for his family, and the symbol of hope and peace that he established continued in the wake of his death. Or so they thought. But Rick wasn't dead. He was taken far away, trying anything and everything he can to escape the CRM and get back to his family. And until that day comes, he's happy just knowing that somewhere they're out there. But who is Rick now? Is he still this symbol of hope and peace, or have his past demons come back to haunt him once again? Where has he been? What has he been doing? Will he ever find his family again? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine at this point. We don't know until the Rick and Michonne show. Some people are calling it TWD Summit, meaning the peak of The Walking Dead, but that's yet to be confirmed. When it comes to Rick in this show, I think it's honestly going to be somewhere in between these two. I think at first we're going to see like a flashback to right after he's taken. He's going to wake up in a hospital room again, and that Rick is going to be this symbol of hope and peace. He's going to try everything he can to get back to his family, and over the course of maybe flashbacks or maybe just the episodes themselves, he is going to get continuously broken down until he becomes this like season 5 feral Rick once again. Rick's journey in this show has probably been my favorite journey that any character has ever taken. He evolves from seeing the world as black and white to seeing it as completely gray. He kills his best friend because he thinks he's wrong, just for Rick himself to become exactly like him down the road. He loses his wife, learns to love again, loses her, learns to love again in the next episode, and then gets taken away from her. He thinks his baby, which actually isn't even his own baby, is dead for an extended period of time, gets reunited with her just for his son to die a few months later. He went from "we don't kill the living" to killing living people who are actively surrendering to him. From thinking every single person he comes across is evil to becoming a beacon of hope for the new world, and made a new family in the time of the apocalypse. Rick Grimes is one of the greatest characters in the history of television, and his name is synonymous with The Walking Dead. You can take Rick out of the show for seasons at a time, and he will still be the most important character in the show. No matter how great Daryl is, or Maggie, or Negan, or Carol, or whoever, this will always be Rick's show. Daryl can be the heart, Glenn can be the soul, Negan can have great development, but Rick Grimes is the face of The Walking Dead. Alright, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I hope the Rick Grimes video lived up to your expectations. I've been putting this one off for a while because I know how important of a character Rick is, and I wanted to really figure out the pacing and the format for these videos first, but I think that I have a definitive routine down for the analysis videos, so be on the lookout for Father Gabriel, Abraham, the Governor, Maggie, and many others. Let me know in the comments who else you want me to do. In the meantime, you should check out some of my other videos for Daryl, Carl, Glenn, Negan, Carol, Michonne, a few others, I don't know, etc. If you enjoyed this video, let me know that by hitting the like button, and if you aren't already, you should subscribe to the channel. If you do, then I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.